So I've really been on a tear looking at these old cartoon video games, and we're keeping that train going. I've done Futurama, I want to do the Simpsons movie game, and for this video I'm going to look at the Family Guy game because why not? And yeah, I know how people feel about Family Guy nowadays, but we don't need to worry about that. This game was made around the time of Season 4, and Season 4 has some bangers, like look at it. There's gotta be some episodes here that you fondly remember. But now that I think about it, it's pretty weird that there wasn't a Family Guy movie. Simpsons had one, and Futurama's game had its story added as a feature in a sort of movie, so why didn't Family Guy have one? Shoot, Bob's Burger even just had one. But I guess American Dad didn't have a movie either, so maybe someone just hates Seth MacFarlane. But I mean, there was Ted, which is Seth MacFarlane doing what he does, so I don't know. This isn't even what the video's about, so let's take a look at the game. Oh, and before we get into the video, if you end up liking the video, like the video. It helps us out a lot, and subscribe if you want to see more shallow dives into old games among a variety of other things. Alright, now let's look into the game. So this game was developed by High Voltage Software, and I was looking at other games they develop, and hey, there's a little sneak preview of some games I'll be looking at in the future. They did a lot of cartoon and video game games, which is kinda crazy because I didn't recognize the game. Whoa, their first game was a White Men Can't Jump game. Why is there a White Men Can't Jump game? That sounds insane, even though I know it's probably a generic old basketball game. Either way, the thing that was pretty funny to me is that this game, Futurama, and the Simpsons game are all by different developers. Like, they're all pretty similar, but I guess you could say that about a lot of games from this era, so yeah. Alright, so what is this game about? Unsurprisingly, this game has multiple characters you play as, Stewie, Brian, and Peter with their own stories. Surprisingly, the stories don't really converge at all. Their stories have their own conclusions without much overlap. The closest thing is that Stewie is, in Peter for a good part of the game. Oh, and Stewie's story kickstarts Peter's side of the story. Alright, so I guess I should talk about the story. In Stewie's story, he tries to project his mind controls to the whole world using a satellite, which is way easier than when he went on a TV show to do the same thing and had to sit in Bill Cosby's lap. Wait, didn't Bill Cosby take the mind control device in that episode? You know what? I'm leaving that alone. Anyway, before he can commence his world domination, his favorite rival Bertram shows up and baits Stewie into destroying the satellite, allowing Bertram to start his own world domination plan. Now Stewie has to figure out the plan and stop Bertram. Fun, also fun. A big part of Stewie's story is getting to Bertram's lair, which is in Peter, but unfortunately Peter's in the hospital, which brings us to Peter's story. Peter was just chilling at home, watching a Belvedere marathon when Stewie blew up the satellite. He goes outside to check it when the bad boy falls on top of him, giving him severe brain damage and sending him to the hospital. When he wakes up, he firmly believes that Mr. Belvedere kidnapped his family and everyone is against him. What follows is him beating up literally everyone who is in his sights, even the women and children. I don't even know how he jumped to that conclusion because no one's even fighting him. The only ones that attack Peter first are the cops, and I don't think anyone's gonna fault the cops in this case. I think the only reason he doesn't go to jail at the end of the game is because everyone is too scared at that point to try it. And that's Peter's story mostly, going around fighting random strangers on the streets due to his untreated head trauma in an attempt to stop Belvedere and save his family. And also, he occasionally slips into different personas, which is always fun. As for Brian's story, he gets in trouble with Carter Peterschmidt because Seabreeze is pregnant and he thinks Brian is the dad, which confuses me a bit since this is basically a retread of the Seabreeze episode, except Brian doesn't think that he's the dad. I guess that means that the episode didn't happen in this world. Anyway, Brian goes to jail but promptly breaks out of jail before he even goes behind bars. He sneaks around town to find out who the real father is, and you know what, I won't spoil it. But you'll probably just watch another video to find out, and it's obvious. Alright, I convinced myself. The real dad is Quagmire, who would have thought? I'm so shocked, and man, writing these down makes me realize how simple the stories are. The quality of the writing was just alright, it was a little too bare bones, and the references to the game being a game became a little too grating.
Hi, I'm Brian, and this is the first of my interactive non-sequiturs. Play this successfully and I'll turn invisible for a short period of time. Thanks for listening.
And I really do not like how they handled the cutaways in this game, writing-wise. It always felt unnatural and out of nowhere. It was like they were giving a presentation, and that was weird. Especially seeing as they had the actual voice actors in this game. I don't know, unlike the Futurama game, it felt extremely phoned in. Now for the gameplay. Just like the story, Brian, Stewie, and Peter have their own sections with vastly different gameplay, which is cool because that means there's some variety in the gameplay, and that's always a good thing, except I did need to have Brian's part. I'm moaning about it, so I might as well start there. For Brian's section, he puts on his hitman outfit, his little Solid Snake gear, and sneaks around. Yep, he's the sneaking section of the game, and it's the most BS sections of this game. I will concede that I'm usually bad at stealth games and stealth sections, but man, just seeing I would play as Brian was enough to deflate any enjoyment I was having. The AI is super finicky about what they see, but at the very least, their pathing is easy to observe and is predictable. Shadows make you essentially invisible, which is cool, and later you get disguises, and that makes it so that you don't get caught. Some of them you can move around and not be caught, and others you have to stand still, but no matter what, it's always powerful. I literally moved in front of a cop and they were starting the animation to stop me until I stood still again. It's some Skyrim stealth archer type of shit. But you will need it though, because your objective isn't just to get to the exit. There are also some things laying around that you'll need to pick up. Basically, they're forcing you to actually explore the area before you leave, and this is fine. I get it. The thing that really gets me is when they introduce these so-called temptations for Brian, like bushes and fire hydrants. If he stands too close to them, a bar fills up, and if it completely fills, he pisses on it without a regard for anything, making it really easy for him to get caught. It's annoying because it's really hard to figure out the range for it, so you just gotta hope and pray. And I'm already focusing on not getting caught, and my brain isn't developed enough to focus on multiple things, and I should move on. Stewie's sections ended up being my favorite. He gets a gun and a lot of stuff is focused on solving puzzles. The combat isn't much to think about, you just lock on and spam your shots, so you're mostly working with the platforming and puzzles part. No, but there are some Galaga-esque sections, but again, just spam your shots and you're Gucci. There are collectibles you can pick up, and if you get enough, you upgrade your gun, whether it be more damage or stronger charge attacks. They're nice to have, but not required. Platforming isn't that bad actually, it feels fine, and I appreciate that you can glide, which was sorely missing from the Futurama game. What was really annoying was the height of your jumps. I could not figure it out for the life of me, and I ended up missing some jumps because I didn't jump high enough. I would keep jumping in place hoping that this time was the one. As for the puzzles, a big part of it came from Stewie's mind control device. You would have to control someone and figure out how to use them to get past whatever room you were in. There were some solutions that were pretty fun in my opinion, and it ended up being my favorite part of the game. Like, the first puzzle is controlling Lois and using the vacuum to chase Brian out of the back door, thus making it open for Stewie to walk through. I don't know, I like that kind of thing. There also are sliding sections, and I could take or leave them honestly. The movement was extremely handicapped, and turning was a chore, which I know is the point, but still. Peter's part of the game is probably the simplest, but there's still some depth to it. Seeing as Peter is beating the dog shit out of anyone and everyone, it would make sense that his gameplay is a beat 'em up. Mostly you'll just be spamming moves, but there is some thought to it. Certain characters can only be hit by certain moves. Kids can only be punted and women can't get hit by a nut shot, things like that. It even gets to the point where there's an enemy that can only be hit by a certain combo finisher, and yes, there are combos done by doing a sequence of punches or kicks depending on what you want to do. There's a good amount of combos, but it is kind of hard to pull them off. The timing is decidedly strict, and I kept feeling like I was a frame off from doing it right, and I would end up doing the wrong combo. I do actually like that death though, and wish there was more beat 'em ups that did it. It curbs button mashing and makes you focus on each encounter, unless you have a special move ready to use. Enemies drop food, and that fills your special bar. Fill it enough and you can do different moves. They're usually one-shot enemies, even some bosses, and it's too good. Especially when I was getting overwhelmed by the people who banded together to stop this menace. Please get them off the streets. Okay, there's one more part to this game that I haven't talked about, and in theory, this is actually my favorite part of the game, but unfortunately, it's a little half-baked. I talked about it a little bit, and that's right, it's the cutaway. Just to reiterate, I really don't like how they feel shoehorned in, and there had to be a smoother way to segue to it. But on the gameplay side, it's pretty solid and does a good job of translating cutaways to the video game format. It really did feel like I was cutting away from the game I was playing. Essentially, these are micro games, and yeah, that's about it. It's kind of like a WarioWare game, and it can get pretty varied. I'll probably show them on the screen, and minus the mashing ones, they were unique. I only wish that there was more of them, and maybe even a mode to see how many you could do in a row while it gets increasingly faster. Yes, I know I'm talking about the game loop of WarioWare, sue me. All in all, I was actually surprised to find myself enjoying the game, minus the Brian sections. I know I'm bad at stealth games, but that does not make me enjoy it. If anything, the game was held back by the writing and the story, which is funny to think about. There were occasionally some good jokes, but I don't know, I wasn't feeling it. But yeah, that's it for the video. If you liked the video, like the video, and subscribe if you want to see more from us. The goal is to have a video out every week, so stick around if we're your jam. Also comment below what other weird old games I should look at. I read all the comments, so don't be shy, you lurker you. Oh, and if you want to support us a little more, we have a Patreon if you want to support us a little more. But just watching us means a lot, so no pressure. And before you try and stop the menace beating up people outside of your house, have a good day. And an even gooder day to our patrons. The 20th Century Boy, Mr. Steezy, Dusty, Kira, Cozy K, and Jake the Ape.